That's fine. Well, again, I do apologize for the nature of surprise here. I never want to surprise anybody. I actually hate surprises. So
Really?
I hate them. So to have
Oh.
a surprise that I now inflicted on someone makes me really sad. And so
Oh.
I'm sorry. Anyway,
There's no reason. No reason. It's
wel-
okay.
welcome to Quarantine Conversations here on the RHEC High School YouTube channel. Hannah De
Yes.
La Pena's favorite YouTube channel, from whatever I understand. And you're working at home.
Hmm.
How is it
Yep.
going?
It's going well. This is my first day working from home. Got a lot of emails done.
Nice,
Yeah, I opened all the tabs on my computer that I'm going to need to go through so I can
nice.
just,
How many
work through them.
how many tabs is that?
Right now I only have three.
Okay,
Uh, so I have my email, I have Google Drive, and then I have Slack, which is
nice.
what church has been using to
Yeah,
communicate.
Slack's dope. Slack's been helpful.
Slack? Yeah.
It makes me feel like we work at like a real company now, like not a
It's just
church.
like one big group message.
It is. It
Hmm.
is. What's been like the hardest thing about working at home for the hour and a half that you've been doing it?
For the hour and a half, I feel like I get very distracted
Yeah.
because whenever I'm home, I feel like I can be productive in other ways. Like, I don't know, like go for a walk or go
Yep.
clean another room or something like that. But just having to like focus.
Yeah.
But then also at the same time, it's been good because in a way there's more flexibility.
Yeah.
So like if I want to take 5 minutes and just like reorganize a cabinet, I can.
Yeah.
So
How many cabinets are you going to reorganize today, you think?
today, I don't think I'm going to do any reorganizing.
Nice.
I
You
might
got all
vacuum a few rooms though.
Good. Good, good, good. So working with missionaries, I'm interested. How are they taking this? Like, how is the rest of the world, in your perspective, responding to COVID-19?
Yeah. I mean, this is a pandemic, so it is all over the world. Most of our missionaries are affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
The ones in more rural areas are affected more. But what's great is that our missionaries are able to then collect resources for the people who are not able to get them.
That's great.
So, like in the Philippines, they have like a very similar government lockdown, but their government is not basically producing any aid for them.
Mm.
So that's where churches can step in and provide rice and beans for families who don't have any food and stuff like that. So
That's huge.
just kind of like coordinating that kind of stuff, and then praying for them because we are there sending church and making sure that they're cared for, not only physically but also spiritually. So
Have you had, in your time in this position, like, have you had any other kind of big global or international things happen where your job has been so affected or you've had to like change how you do things? Or is this like the first time?
yeah, I'd say this is the first time. There have been there's one natural disaster in Mozambique,
Right.
Hurricane that hit. So that was just kind of like checking in with them almost daily, saying like, "Hey, you still okay? Do you still have power?"
Wow.
So there are things like that, but not really. Not whenever it comes to like so widespread and so kind of life altering.
Yeah. And I say this to every person that I talk to. There's no scale for this. No one knows what's happening, and no one knows what's going to happen. And I
Yeah.
bet that a lot of people are asking the church, what are missions going to look like now? So what do you think missions will look like, this summer? And, don't have to say if anything's canceled or not, but like, what do you
Yeah.
think missions would look like moving forward with the COVID, happening?
Yeah. Well, we have had to cancel 2 short-term missions trips, and
Right.
then we postponed another one till later in the season, just to kind of be safe about it.
Right.
But whenever it comes to like our long-term missionaries, none of them have had to come home yet,
Okay.
which is awesome.
That's huge.
And then like a lot of our national workers, they've been able to be a really good resource to the communities that they work in. So I think
Nice.
honestly, it's just as tragic as it is, it becomes a catalyst for the gospel.
Totally.
Because people are searching for answers and searching for help. So, I mean, it sets our missionaries up to do great work.
Right.
In amongst something that's incredibly sad.
Do you change like how you have missionaries now go preach or go do missions work?
That's a good question. I would say it would really depend on their context.
Right. Like in Italy or something, it'd look a lot different than in like somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. we don't have a ton of missionaries in Europe, but one of the ones that we do have, they've just been calling a lot of the people
Mm,
that they've created relationships with.
that's
So
awesome.
they're in Germany.
Oh,
And
wow.
they just got there. Yeah. They got there about like a year ago.
Okay.
So they're not too established yet in the work that they've been doing. They've just been establishing life and like community within their church. And so then their church has been calling out just to fellow neighbors and stuff like that and communities or like their business partners basically and just saying like, how can we be praying for
Mm,
you? And that's just such a, like that in and of itself is asking them, how can we be praying for you as a witness? Because no one else is asking how they can be praying for them.
yeah.
So,
People are avoiding like the plague.
mm-hmm.
Have you been outside at all?
Yes.
Yeah. Like Megan and I went to Del Cerro over the weekend and hiked,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of people out, but we're all like at a safe distance from one another. You know, it feels very weird. And so that is a cool picture of like the church stepping in and
Mm-hmm.
like still practicing social distancing to a certain extent, but also being like hands and feet and being able to pray and provide. That is awesome. What's
Yeah.
your experience been like just as a, you know, person in America, California, you know, South Bay, kind of neighbors with me? Like
Kind of.
where have you been in all this and like mentally, spiritually and stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, all of last week I was still working like at church. We were doing like the canned food drive and stuff
Right.
like that. So collecting that and organizing that.
Did you see
And
the
that was
Daily
really
Breeze
cool.
wrote an article?
No way,
I'll
really?
text it to you. Yeah, they wrote an article about it.
Oh,
I think there's
dang.
honestly a picture of you. Were you wearing like black latex gloves?
A lot of us were.
Okay, so I think there is a picture of you. Anyway, continue. Canned food drive at church.
Okay. Yeah, so that was really cool. But then we had people from other departments that came in to help. So we had like a few people who usually do childcare come in and help like collect and organize the food, which is just like it's just like one of those things where it's like this is how the church is supposed to be. Like
Right.
there's just like a feeling inside of me that like comes alive
Oh,
whenever it's
that's
like
really special.
yeah, like people are in need and the church has so many resources and we get to meet those needs. Like
Yeah.
that is the love of Christ. Like
Yeah.
that's kingdom building.
That's awesome.
So that's been really encouraging, but then also at the same time I feel like sometimes whenever I'm like yes, like let's go love people, but then also at the same time like there's so many people. Like I was on a walk at the beach with my parents yesterday and there are people who like would just like walk around you and keep that 6 foot
Right.
like distance, and it's just like that reality and the reminder that people are so scared right now and they're not on fire for life. Just like living life.
It's hard to imagine someone who's like super psyched right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
a homebody maybe. Someone who has a lot going on in their house. That might be the most fired up they could be. What about
Yeah.
you like personally? How are you doing with it all?
Yeah, I think I was talking to a friend about this who lives up in Portland because they've been on like house quarantine for a few days before us. And so she started working from home. And then she asked me, she's like, how are you going to deal with that? And I was like, honestly, I haven't started yet.
Right.
I don't know. So this will be a good day to just kind of test it out. But like me personally, I don't do well having to
Mm,
stay in one place for a long time. So my plan is to take a lot of walks around the block,
right.
kind of break it out. But I think honestly, like whenever I come into times that like something is so new and so kind of like uncharted territories, um, I find it very exciting because then I like am expecting something. Like
Yeah.
I'm expecting a new thing. I'm expecting to grow in some way, and I'm expecting God to move.
Yeah.
Whether that's in our community or in me personally or both, which would be awesome. So yeah,
What
just
are you
kind of waiting.
what are you hoping that God does in your own life and heart in this time?
Yeah. I think one thing that I struggle with is whenever I like have my quiet times with God, I would much rather do it at the end of the day. Um, but I think there's something very like special about starting your day with God.
Hmm.
And so I think like obviously my commute to work is a 3-step walk to my chair rather than like
Yeah.
a 15-minute drive.
Right.
And so like there are just so many more opportunities for me to say like, God, this is your day, and kind of lay it before him.
Hmm.
And then whether that's just spending time in prayer and then like reading my Bible later or reading my Bible in the morning or whatever that might look like. So
How are you?
I'm
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you were done.
No, it's
I'm
just
bad at talking.
I'm just excited to see in a sense, I do have more time to get my work done
Right.
and more time to do things. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that that's something so important to just be mindful of, like, this is still a day.
Mhm.
And like everything that happens in a day is still going to happen. It just looks a little bit different now.
Yeah.
How are you fighting against isolation?
Well, I live with 2 roommates, so
That's
that
good.
really helps. Um, my family has done a few FaceTime calls, which is super fun. Honestly, I think I talk to them more now, like
Yeah.
on the phone, which is crazy. But yeah, like I'll text them a lot, but there's like something about calling them on the phone or like doing a FaceTime.
Right. I think that like that is one thing I really hope carries over. Like I hope that
Mm-hmm.
we all start to just talk more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will say this though, like I do have people who I don't normally FaceTime with who want to FaceTime, and I'm like, we don't FaceTime normally, so why would I want to, hang out with you via Zoom? But there are people who I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to check in with them, and we don't necessarily talk a lot. So it's good and bad. It's good and bad. But I think that isolation is the hardest thing about this whole thing. Like
Yeah.
the mandate to stay in your home, and people are getting more and more like strict about it, which I think is good, but it's also really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah. I also think there's like something, I think it was David Call who said this in one of our chapels. He said like isolation and like solidarity is like just like the difference is being with God. And so like being able to basically like rest assured that like your relationship with Christ has not gone anywhere.
Right.
And like being so much more fulfilled by him rather than the people who are in like our life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is like obviously, yes, we need people, but also what does it look like whenever we can't see them?
Amen. That's good. Yeah. Have you been interacting with your Impact Girls at all? Speaking of people you can't see.
Well, we tried to do a house party after the Impact Live on Wednesday.
Right.
That almost worked, and then we tried Skype. That didn't work.
What do you mean it almost worked?
Well, we just had a few too many people. So I think we're going to try and do a FaceTime because I didn't know you could do more than 8 people on FaceTime.
Yeah, I think you could do like 100 or something. There's some crazy big number. Also, Google Hangouts are like big right now too.
Really?
Yeah, Megan did a yoga class on Google Hangouts yesterday. And
wow.
how many people were on it, Megan? Like 30? Yeah. Like 30 people were on it.
Oh, dang.
So you could do that as well.
Okay, good to know.
Google Hangouts, yeah. Do you think they miss you a lot?
I miss them.
Aww.
I don't know if they miss me.
Yeah, I miss Impact. It's just like, this is the worst. But I appreciate you taking some time talking to me in your busy new workday.
Yes, very busy.
So I'll end this with a question I'm asking everybody in these quarantine conversations. It's one content thing, book, movie, TV show, podcast you want to recommend people watch or read or do during quarantine, or something that you've been really enjoying that you want to share with others.
Yes. Well, actually 2 things.
Please.
I have started to be more aware of the like kind of arty things that I've been doing, making sure that I have like an expression of art. And so whether that's like coloring or drawing or even just kind of like looking at things in a new way, just like making sure that all parts of my brain are like being exercised. But also there's a book by John Mark Comer. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Second person who said it.
Really?
People love it, yeah. I mean, I love it. It's a great book.
It's so good. I've only started it, so I haven't finished it, but I just think it's like, it came into my life at an appropriate time.
Yeah, it's very topical.
And so when given all of this extra time, like, what do you do with it? And I think it speaks to how to really focus on God rather than things. So
yeah, it teaches you how to really rest versus like forced isolation or like forced staying at home. Because I think that a lot of people might look at this time and say, oh, well, I'm going to be forced to rest. And they just like watch Netflix or play Call of Duty or this or that or this or that. And it's like, that's one way to rest, I suppose. But you have to really be intentional about how you choose to spend this time and what you're going to do in your heart. And I think that that's why this book's really good, because it says, don't just use the time that you have where you're free and not at work for nothing.
Exactly.
Do something about it. And I hope that that's another thing that carries over, like rhythms of rest, peace, space, stuff like that. So I hope that happens. Are you anticipating a really busy week?
I don't think so.
Good.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Well, I'll let you get back to work. Hannah, Thanks so much for jumping on. I'm, again, very sorry to have surprised you that this was going to be recorded.
It was a pleasant surprise.
Pleasant surprise, great conversation. Fight against isolation. That's the quarantine conversation mantra. And enjoy your time. And hopefully in 13 years, when we can leave our house again, we have a great time at Impact.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it. All right, I'll see you, Hannah.